Nagkasundo ang dalawang senador na sina Senator Zubiri at Senator Loren Legarda patungkol sa failure ng flood control project. Pakinggan natin ang kanilang panayam.
As a senator, what grade can you give the government in coming up with projects that are climate change resilient or will help mitigate climate change? What grade can you give the government from a high of 10 to 0?
Just like my answer to Senator Lacson in putting percentages, I may not be able to give a percentage or a grade, but I would be honest in saying that we have failed.
Yes.
Government has failed its people. We have failed. And let me just say why. Because first, we have enacted the laws. So we cannot say that we're ignorant in terms of policies. We have all the laws in air, in water, in land, in climate action, in disaster risk reduction. We have the laws. We cannot say that we don't have the funding resources because we have tried our best to put our funding in those laws and institutions, but we are very poor in terms of implementation, in terms of governance, whether it's in national or in local. And this is exacerbated by the fact that the climate is changing and the natural hazards, the storms have become more intense and more frequent. So while the climate has become worse, the natural hazards have become worse, we have not improved. I say this and I consider myself as part of a government in a way that we have tried to enact the laws, but insofar as its implementation and monitoring and oversight is concerned, I think that we've failed. We've failed our people.
Yes.
And I would not pin the blame on one person, one institution, one administration. It's been going on for so long, and I think that we must really find the solution. But the solution actually lies here. It's so simple. Shouldn't we clean our drainages and canals every day, and not only when there's a typhoon? Pagbaha lang. Should we not actually follow the hazard maps because they are the no-build zones? Should we not actually evacuate our people in due time because we have early warning systems, unlike in Ondoy when we did not have the Doppler radar in 2009? Should we not ensure the structural integrity of our flood mitigation structures, which are needed, which are funded, but sometimes or oftentimes fail in protecting our homes and livelihoods? And so, I think we've failed. That is my humble opinion. Perhaps the engineers or those who are implementing our laws would think otherwise, and I would like to be convinced that we have not failed. But you see the results, the continued loss of lives, and the flooding even when there's no rain shows that it's not working.
I have to agree with the lady senator, Mr. President, that it's been a failure. We've seen a lot of infrastructure projects that are put up, and maybe due to the corruption that's slowly being brought out now in the consciousness of each and everyone. Social media, we thank social media for bringing it out to the consciousness of almost every member of society now, whether they're rich or poor. And I give you an example, Mr. President. In Bicol, where my mom is from, she's from Albay. When I visited recently, about a few months ago, when there was a typhoon that hit them, and namigay po ako ng tulong sa bayan ng Libon, kung saan po pinanganak ang aking lolo, Dr. Fernandez. At ang banggit sa akin doon ay paulit-ulit po silang humihingi ng flood control kasi baha po dyan na projects. Ang problema daw, Mr. President, ay parang chop suey na hindi po siya master plan. Ang gagawin, maglalagay po ng dike dito, wala naman dike sa gitna, lalagay na naman ng dike dito sa kabila. So kung sana lang po may butas, doon lumalabas ang tubig, nababaha pa rin po yung mga barangay. Tapos ang sabi pa nila, Mr. President, yung mga project doon, yung mga dike, pagbagsak, nakita po nila, puro kawayan yung laman. Hindi po kabilya ng bakal. Yan yung riprap. na kawayan po, bamboo, ang ginagamit po nila as the base, as I'd say the base frame, which should be, of course, all steel. So, would you say that in a way we have failed in our climate resilience, in our climate mitigation projects, due to the fact that there's been widespread corruption on these infrastructure projects?
Yes, the failure of oversight, the lack of structural integrity, the collapse, figuratively and literally speaking, of infrastructure because it's substandard, because of corruption. These are major and main causes of the loss of lives and livelihood. As I said, we could have avoided the loss of lives because we have the laws and we have the institutions if only we implemented the laws properly.
Yes, Mr. President. And imagine we spent so much money, hundreds of billions of pesos on particular infrastructure projects, Mr. President, na hindi naman gumagana. Like, for example, grabe pong ulan dun sa mountain areas of the Cordilleras. And most recently, we saw a video and pictures of the landslides that now have destroyed Cannon Road.
Yes.
A very large portion of Cannon Road is unpassable now due to the high level of rainfall. But the sad part about it, Mr. President, is if you look at the designs of the landslide mitigation facilities that they used, which is more commonly known as rock netting rock. Sasabi ko, rock netting rock. Kasi yan ang hilig po ng mga politiko, maglagay ng rock netting. Isang maliit lang na ulan, or mabilis lang po na ulan ay nagigiba na. At may sinabi pa nga si Senator Ping Lacson sa akin na yung isang project na rock netting ginamit fish net. Hindi na po yung bakal na wire netting. So fish net na po. So I agree with your observation, together with my observation, that due to rapid or the increased corruption or the how do you say, kapal muka na korupsyon ng ating ibang mga kababayan, ay natetenga itong mga projects na sisira at ultimately ang taong bayan ang kawawa. At sana naman po, Mr. President, don't you think, Mr. President, to the good sponsor, na hindi lamang pong insulto na nakakahiya kayo ang itapon natin sa kanila, kundi dapat siguro kasuhan na sila para sa ganun ay hindi na po ito mangyayari muli. Would the lady sponsor agree with me on that observation? That strong words, yung mainit na pagsasalita, yung panginginsulto sa mga taong na gumagawa nitong mga I'd say katiwalian na ito na talagang apektadong taong bayan, hindi sapat. Would the good sponsor agree with me na hindi sapat ang magiging galit lamang at pagsabihan itong mga to, at dapat kasuhan natin itong mga to?
Mr. President, I agree with you. In fact, in my statement earlier, I mentioned about accountability. There must be accountability in the process. And I think I also mentioned it earlier in my speech in Filipino na hindi na sapat na pulaan lang natin, pero kailangan may managot.
Yes.
And that translates to accountability.
So this is a big part of your on your speech. It encompasses many topics like climate finance, climate change resilience and mitigation, etc., etc. And we cannot move forward as a nation, which is the number one most affected by climate change, if we do not clean up our acts, Mr. President. Because if we do not clean up our acts, para kaming sirang plaka. Because my first speech when I entered in 2007 was about climate change. My first ever speech as a senator. I was in that podium, pinag-usapan po namin pag-iiba po ng klima and what it can cost to our country as a climate change, it's one of the vulnerable countries for climate change, and even raised steps that we can do. For example, climate resilient classrooms. And ngayon po, Mr. President, yung isang classroom, and I'd like to quote, wala lang po Senator Bam, he's in his office, but Senator Bam and I were complaining that yung classroom building, one single detached classroom building, is 5 million pesos na po. But if it is built by a foundation, like the Philippine Chinese Chamber of Commerce, it's half. If you donate it and you pay for it, 2.5 million, makatayo ka na ng solid classroom. Yung masama pa dito sa 5 million, Mr. President, parang substandard pa, walang banyo, nasisira yung kesame kaagad pag may malakas na hangin. And that is why we're so inefficient in utilizing our funds that panay utang po tayo ng utang na tayo po lahat ang magbabayad, pati ang ating mga apo at apo sa tuhod, at pumapasok na ito sa iilang tao lamang sa kanilang bulsa dahil sa korupsyon. As a matter of fact, I'm excited to hear the expose of Senator Ping Lacson. He said there's more than 67 contractor members of Congress. Dapat yan, ipalabas po natin yan, Mr. President. We support him. We support him and the others who will come out with this list because it is a blatant abuse of authority and a blatant, how do you say, tumayo kasi si Senator Ping, kaya na distract. Pero yung shameless ba? Very, very shameless. But I yield for